Our topic today is a look at the CQ Worldwide RTTY contest with contest director Ed Munns, W0YK. Ed entered DX contests initially in the early 1970s as a way to work new band mode countries for DXCC. Contesting itself became attractive, and his early learning came from the multi-multi experience at K0RF. His contesting expanded to domestic contests as well, and DXing outside of contests diminished. Today, contesting primarily on CW and RTTY is what dominates Ed's operating time. His local contest club, the Northern California Contest Club, mounted an effort for the club competition gavel, first offered in the 2004 ARRL RTTY roundup, where Ed reluctantly learned how to set up RTTY and ultimately won the Pacific Division single operator high power plaque. He ironically enjoyed that induction into RTTY so much that he now includes all the major RTTY contests in his contesting schedule. He holds the world single-op high-power record in ARRL RTTY Roundup, having broken the record 3 times, and the world single-op high-power record in CQWWR RTTY, having broken the record there 4 times. It is the contest manager for the NCJ, National Contest Journal, North American RTTY Sprint, and of course the contest director for 2 CQ RTTY contests, which are the CQ Worldwide RTTY contest next weekend, which Ed is going to tell you all about, and the CQWWR RTTY contest. Ed, we're glad you were able to join us today. The floor is yours. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thanks, Ken, and welcome to everybody out there. I'm really pleased with the participation. Good afternoon, I guess, good evening, and good morning around the world to everybody. So, there we go. As many of you know, the CQ Worldwide RTTY contest is the largest participation contest of all the RTTY contests we do. The WPX contest is a close second. In fact, for the last several years, they've been kind of leapfrogging each other in logs submitted. And they're both running about 2,400 submitted logs now. And we'll see more about that in a minute. And but the number of unique calls that we're seeing in recent years is around 15,000. So there's a lot of casual participants that don't turn in logs. And as any of you know that have participated in this contest, the bands are just chock full of QSOs during the weekend. And of course, this mode opens the CQ Worldwide season. For the next 3 months, we have a CQ Worldwide every month in the different modes. And it's an excellent way, especially for multi-ops, to check out their stations as they head into the other modes. And for individual operators, I think many of us, certainly myself, has found that operating RTTY has been a tremendous boon to my SO2R training, my own personal skills development, just because you're freed up from decoding the signal and can develop skills in other areas. I've tried things in SO2R on RTTY that I wouldn't dare try on CW first for fear of hurting myself. So it's been a real boon. So here are the topic areas we're going to cover today. And let's get right on with it, with the history. Oh, let me, if you didn't get the late email, let me just point out that on the web page, on the CQ Worldwide RTTY web page, right down here is a PDF of all the slides that I'm showing today. So you can look at that, and as Ken said, in a few days we'll have the full recording up on the PVRC site. So the first first inaugural event of this contest was back in 1987 on the last weekend in September, as it's been ever since. And it was co-sponsored by CQ Magazine and the RTTY Journal. The RTTY Journal has since gone out of publication in 2003, but I don't know how many of you realize it actually started in 1953, so it went for a full 50 years supporting the RTTY world, and actually through the group of people that were bound together with that journal, a number of contests were started. And even though I marked the date, and as you see here on the left on this slide, this is a page out of the RTTY journal in 1987, and they're announcing the first annual CQ Magazine RTTY Journal Worldwide RTTY DX Contest. And actually, there was a precursor to this contest, and some of the old-timers may remember it. 73 Magazine, along with the RTTY Journal, started the World Championship CW and RTTY contest in April of 1982. And on April 3rd, a Saturday, they did 24 hours of CW, and then on Sunday did 24 hours of RTTY. And in the contest report results afterwards, they noted that there was very little CW activity because most of this was being announced and propagated through the RTTY world. And they went for another 5 years, up through '86, with that contest. They dropped CW the second year, and it was just the RTTY Worldwide Championship. And then in 1986, it was held in February that year. They decided that the following year they would have a new format and that it would be in September, and that's how this contest was ultimately born. But as you see here from this slide, initially it included 160 meters. It included basically all the digital modes. There was only multi-single in the multi-category, and it was high power only, or I should say that it was there were no power categories at all. And single op, interestingly enough, had a 30-hour maximum time limit, like we have in WPX RTTY. Keep losing my mouse here. It was all band or single band, and there was no assisted category at that time. There were 280 entries. VE1 ASJ won the single op with 489 cues, and a multi-single down in the Galapagos with 1,222 cues took that category. So here's the history of logs received in the contest, and you can see we started at, as I said, 280 in '87. Last year we had 2,307 logs. And down here at the bottom, I'm showing the contest director's history there. Ray Gould, who is now K1RY, kicked off the contest and led it through 2000. Then Glenn Vincent took over and rode it on this tremendous growth path. You can see how the inflection changed. I don't think that had anything to do with the contest managers as much as really just in the 2000s really took off in popularity. And then, of course, I took over from Glenn with the 2009 contest. Actually, I did log checking in 2008 due to the unfortunate demise of Paolo Cortese, who was working with Glenn. And in fact, Paolo I2UIY was slated to take over from Glenn as the new contest director starting with 2009. And with his untimely death in October of that year, I stepped in to help with log checking and then started with the contest in 2009. So I'm going to go through a few slides here and just show how the rules developed. The very next year after the contest started in '88, they dropped the 160 band. And then in 1990, assisted and multi-multi was added. Not multi-2 yet, but just the multi-multi category. In '93, low power was added as a category. And the next year in '94, the 30-hour limit for single ops was dropped. So single ops could go to the full time like the other CQ Worldwide. And then in 2001, when Glenn took over, I have shown the CQ logo there to mark the fact that the CQ magazine took over the contest 100% from the RTTY journal, and they reduced the modes to RTTY only and added the multi-2 category. I should also mention that towards the end of Ray Gould's tenure as the contest director, Ron Staley, who a lot of you may know, K5DJ, was a co-director and helped out. And when Glenn took over, Eddie Snyder, trying to remember what his call, G0AZT/W6, I may have the call busted, but anyway, Eddie helped Glenn in the early years of the CQ management of the contest. And then in 2009, we changed the 10-minute rule to band changes. So there's 8 band changes for multi-single and multi-2 on the clock hour. And I just felt that gave a little bit more flexibility to those stations rather than the 10-minute rule in terms of chasing mults. After all, single ops can change bands as often as they want, every QSO if they want. And so I just wanted to give a little bit more flexibility to the multi-op stations. So where we are with the rules today, and now what I'm doing is comparing the current RTTY rules with the other modes, CW and sideband. And there's basically 5 differences. No 160, of course, as we said. But the U.S. states and the VE areas are additional mults. There's still the countries and zones, but in addition to that, there are U.S. states and VE areas as mults, which evens the playing field a little bit between the European area region and North America. And going along with that, then, the QSO points are equalized. That is that there's 2 points for different country contacts on the same continent, where on the other modes it's 2 points only for North America and 1 for all others. So these 2 points kind of go hand in hand. And then also for the same country mults, we give 1 point because, of course, you're working states and areas, VE areas here in North America. In the categories, we actually have a low power category in multi-single, which has been real popular. But we haven't added QRP extreme or team competition categories at this time. And then I've already mentioned the band change rule. So on the website, there are a number of resources available, and I hope people use the website because we try to post all the pertinent information and keep it up to date there. And this is the website. If you haven't seen it, this is the home page, and you can see here at the top the different topics. We're going to go through these areas kind of as an agenda of more things that we talk about here today. One thing I'd like to point out is just in the last week we've gotten the rules translated into French and into Greek just by volunteers that have stepped forward. So if any of you out there can translate the rules, that would be great. Just send me a Word document and I'll make a PDF, or you can send me a PDF. And if you want the original Word document in English to work from, just send me an email and I'll send it off to you. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about is to try to get everyone to think about submitting what I call a good log. And by a good log, I mean one that's formatted in such a way that we can get through log checking without spending a lot of time correcting the log just so it'll go into the log checker. So before the contest, make sure that whatever logging program you're using will create a proper Cabrillo file. And there's information on the website in the logs section. Here, if we go to logs, you'll see that there's information here on the Cabrillo file. If you go down here, we show exactly what your file should look like, where the columns are and everything. In the Cabrillo spec, you'll find that it's very specific about where things start by column number. And it turns out in log checking, most of our log checkers, log checking software, that really doesn't matter. We key off of white space, so as long as there's at least one space between each of the fields, we can deal with it okay. But if you want to be precise, you can follow the column numbers that we recommend there. As you scroll on down the page, there's lots of information there about your log. And most loggers will create this file for you automatically. But what I would urge you to do is to open it up, or run a test log, open it up with a text editor, and just check that your logger is generating the proper file. Because it may be that if it's not collecting and saving all the right information, it won't be able to create the proper file in the end. So you want to check that beforehand. And then after the contest, you make your Cabrillo file. Again, open it with a text editor and just check for the proper header entries that are outlined there on the web page, and look at the QSO line format to make sure that it's okay. And then after log checking, you should email us for your log check report, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute. So probably 95 to 98% of all of the hours that we spend, hundreds of hours in log checking, is simply correcting logs, just working with an ASCII column editor and correcting log formats so that the log check software can recognize it. And that's something obviously that the submitter can do on their end, and they're more familiar with the log and can probably do a better job. Some of the things that you might watch out for in the header, a real common mistake is people just put whatever they kind of feel like it sort of recognizes the name of the contest in there, but we really do need to have exactly those letters, that ASCII, just like it is right there. And in the location area, US and VE stations need to put their ARRL or RAC section, because we use that to know what your location is, and then everyone else can just put DX. Oftentimes, and this may sound strange, but it happens if you don't look at the text in your Cabrillo log afterwards, is that the call sign that's in all the QSO lines in your log is different than what was sent. And this often happens if someone uses a logger and changes their call sign for this contest and doesn't notice it in their log. And obviously that's going to cause all kinds of havoc in log checking. Sometimes, especially in this contest, the QTH column is missing, because you remember we have a third multiplier, and that's the QTH for US and VE stations. And so that column has to be in there. And the other thing that happens along that regard is sometimes it's in the wrong order. For example, QTH coming before zone instead of after zone. One comment about U.S. and Canada portables. In fact, I got a question about this the other day, if you have to sign portable, and you absolutely do not. For example, using my call, for example, if I were operating from California, I can just use W0YK, because as I mentioned earlier, we get your actual location from the location line in the Cabrillo header. However, you will notice when the results come out that you'll be listed with the portable, because once we processed it with the location, we put the portable on it so that in our databases, especially the searchable scores database that we'll talk about later, it's all sorted by area. So if W0YK operates from California, then his results need to be accumulated, each year in the 6th U.S. call area. A couple of other details that come up now and then. Single band entries can work on other bands, and you should include all of those contacts in your log. In fact, if you don't, it's going to cause not in log penalties in other logs. So feel free to work other bands, include it in your log. In your Cabrillo header, you'll have your category, and so if you were 20-meter single band, that will be noted in the header, and we will score your log based on that entry category. But we need all of the other QSOs. So if you work anybody on any band in this contest, be sure to include it in your log, because if you don't, it will cause penalties for the other station. And then the mantra that I think we've all heard on and on is log all contacts, no matter what happens. Log all dupes. If you miss an exchange or bungle up a contact, and you're pretty sure that the other station has it in their log or may have it in their log, be sure and leave it in your log so that we don't give them a not in log. Any logging mistake you work, just go ahead and leave it in your log. The log checking can sort all that out. So When the contest is over and you have your Cabrillo log, of course you use the robot. This is the email address where you send your log, and all you need is your call sign. In fact, we asked you to only put your call sign in the subject, and you don't need any text in the message at all. Just have an attachment with the Cabrillo text file. And I hear on the reflector sometimes people complaining about the robot, but the robot is actually your friend, because the robot will screen your log for format problems and format errors, and will tell you about that. So when you submit your log, 30 seconds later you'll get an email back from the robot either saying your log is fine, or down at the bottom of that message it will list all of the problems that it found. And what you should do is to go back and correct all those formatting problems and resubmit your log. You can submit your log 100 times, as many times as you want. We'll use the last one, the most recent date-coded one, in log checking. And a couple of things to note is that sometimes the robot will make a guess at what you were trying to do. For example, if you have some information in your header line, in your Cabrillo header, you have a header line that isn't one of the legal entries, it will make a guess, for example, that your category is single op high power. And so you need to see what the guess is, and if you don't agree with that, then fix it and resubmit your log. And then once you have your log submitted, go to the web page, and under the Logs tab, you can look at the logs received. Up here is logs received, and that will give you, I see someone besides my own test log, someone else has already submitted a log for the contest that hasn't happened, but this is just an automatic printout that gets updated every hour from our robot server that shows all the logs that we have in our repository. So on club competition, one of the things to be careful about is to enter your club name precisely as it is shown in the club name list. So if we go back here to club names, you'll see that we have a list of club names, and find your club on here and then put the exact characters as we have listed here in your Cabrillo file for the club. Because if you don't, it won't match up in our software, and again, it creates a lot of work for the volunteers, which is predominantly me, to go through and correct all that ASCII. And if you don't have your club is not listed on that list, just send a email to Jacques F6BEE here, and it'll get added to the list for all of the CQ contests. We use one list that drives all of the CQ contests. So once you get it on there, it's good for all of them. So as I said, after log checking is over, we'll have an announcement that that's done and that log check reports are available, commonly called LCRs. And I strongly encourage you to ask us for that. Just send me an email, and we'll send this ASCII file back to you. It's a great way to look at how to improve your accuracy, which is really aimed at, as we do in all contests, at increasing our operating skill. So even if you're not trying to win or compete with somebody else, contests, of course, are a way to improve your own skill. And looking at your log check report, you can see where errors were made. And it allows you to compete with yourself for next time. So I'm just going to step through the sections of this. The log check report that we're doing now, starting with the 2008 contest a couple of years ago, is really very, very rich. And thanks to K1EA, who has just done a tremendous job on log checking for many of the contests that we all participate in. And certainly all the CQ contests and most of the ARRL contests. So the first section at the top of the page is a summary section, and what this is showing is just a summary of your QSOs, comparing claimed versus final. Claimed is not what you put in your Cabrillo header for your claim score. It's what we derive from your log before we do any log checking. And then after log checking, that's the final number. So you get QSOs, QSO points, because remember there's different points for different areas, different distances that you've had contacts with. And then the three multipliers, countries, zones, and states and DE areas, the total molts, and then the score. You'll see that there's a score reduction here in this example of 2.5%, and then it breaks that down. The one thing that's not listed here are bad exchanges. This particular log had 5 busted exchanges, and that's not listed here, but we'll see that in a minute. Duplicates, of course, you're not penalized for, and calls that are unique that we are not able to determine that we can guarantee are really busted are not removed from the log, although from experience we show that over 95% of those uniques are actually busted calls. So the next section is just a breakdown by band of the same information, so you can see QSOs and the 3 molt areas broken down by band. Then we step through different sections that talk about the different categories of errors. So this section is stations that are in this log but are not in the corresponding log that we receive. And so you can see there are a number of those here. We call them not in logs or NILs in the vernacular. The next section is one where we've busted the call. And so this lists the QSO lines in your log and shows what call that you have in your log versus what the correct call is. So Sugar Papa 3 Golf X-Ray Mike is in our log, but it's actually hotel on the end instead of Mike is the actual call. And so you can see your mistakes in busted calls there. And then the next couple of sections, here's the incorrect exchange section. This is where we've busted a QTH. You know, we've had Kansas in our log, but Georgia was the correct. And then down here, here's the band change violations. This is where we did 10 band changes in a clock hour instead of 8. And so we lost those QSOs. In fact, you'll lose all QSOs beyond you know, the 8 band change per hour. So you want to watch that very closely. And then this last one was a format error that was not taken out of the log. The reason being that we didn't want to create we didn't want to bust the call and then create a problem somewhere else. So we just left it in, and that's a Cabrillo format error that, of course, you don't get credit for the QSO. And then this is a list of unique calls. So you can see the unique calls that were in your log, and as I said, if they're totally unique, we don't remove them at this point. And then there's a section that shows your lost multipliers, and so when you've lost a QSO either from a busted call or a busted exchange, or in this case not in log, you can see the multipliers you lost. And then it goes band by band in the multiplier section, showing you all the multipliers specifically that you got, both zones and countries. And then there's a final section that shows where your call was busted in someone else's log. And that might be interesting in some cases where, you know, maybe if you're busting your call sign in somebody else's log a lot, that there may be something wrong perhaps on your end on transmission. So that's just good feedback to you, but there's no impact on your error rate. It's just the other person gets dinged for that. Okay, thanks to Randy K5ZD and Don Hill at A5AU, we now have a complete history of all 24 years of the CQ Worldwide RTTY contest scores online in a searchable database. So this allows you to look at your history in the contest, to review the results of specific areas or maybe specific stations that you want to look at. And you can go to a much finer grain of granularity than what we have reported in the results. You can go down to an area like JA7 and look at the history and the various categories and how they sort it out over the years. You can find various records to beat that may not be official records that we've kept in the past, but now with this database, virtually anything that you can search on, you can create a record on the records page. So this database drives both the results page. If we go over to the in the results area, you can go to the scores database. I still have the old data that has the PDFs of scores and the results article from the magazine and all that gets put up. But if you go to the scores database, you can see that you can create a search here and go through and look at any particular area you want. For example, if you wanted to look at say the W8 area of the United States, and you wanted to look at single band 20 meters, click on that, and you can see the history, and you can see that Alpha Bravo 8 Kilo holds the record for single op high power 20 meters in the Whiskey 8 area. And on the more recent, since 2008, we have the data for the breakdown of zones, countries, and states. Prior to that, we don't have that data available in the database, but as time goes on, you'll have that in all the contests. And so this is just a really cool way, I think, for everybody worldwide to kind of look at their own area of competition and where they can compete and try to do better. And of course, you can search on particular calls, so you can look at your own call. And so I would encourage you to use this database. One of the things that still needs to be improved on is the portable area that I mentioned about earlier. Some of those are still not correct for some of the earlier contests. So if you look at your call in there and you're in a different area than what the prefix of your call indicates, and it's not correct in the database, just drop me an email and we'll get that corrected. And then if you go to the records tab, of course, the same thing is available to you in terms of the scores database. There's also the statistics page, which shows the same chart that I showed earlier and shows the number of submitted logs. And again, I'll repeat, in this year, or in 2009, we had 2,300 logs submitted. We actually had 15,000 unique calls. And even if you take out the uniques, that is only in one log, it still is over 14,000 different calls. So there's a lot of participation in this contest. In terms of awards, we have a very rich certificate program. About 25% of the participants get certificates that we mail out, thanks to Barry Merrill, W5GN, who takes our database, creates all the certificates, and mails them all out from his company there. So we have a lot of thanks to Barry for that. He's actually doing it for I think most of the CQ contests now. And first place in each category of every country, and each call area in the larger countries, US, VE, JA, Australia, Spain, and Russia, all get certificates. And we're working on, for the future, doing an online printable certificates like we have for WPX, so that anybody can print a nice certificate or take the file to a local print shop and get a color version of it if they don't have an appropriate printer. And then, of course, we have a nice plaque program. You'll notice that these plaques are a different format than the regular CQ Worldwide or WPX plaques. This was started in the early days of the contest, and we just continued on with these plaques. Mike Sims, K4GMH, manages the CQWWRTTY plaque programs, that is for both contests, and signs up the sponsors, checks the artwork, orders the plaques, and CQ Magazine sends them out, but Mike really runs that program. And if you go to the website, again, under plaques, we have a list here of the 2009 sponsors of various categories, and the 2010 column is blank right now because we have an email out to all of the 09 sponsors. They get first right of refusal for sponsoring plaques this year, and if they decide not to sponsor it, then that'll be available. But I also point out that there's some that weren't sponsored in the past, and so those are available, as well as if you find another category that's not listed here that you would like to sponsor a plaque for, feel free to email Mike and talk to him about it. The plaque program is not set in concrete. Basically, it's driven entirely by donations, by sponsors of these plaques, and so that's one way to support the hobby and give back, is to sponsor a plaque, either individually or your club. Also, I'd like to point out the I2UIY Memorial Award. We have, it's a plaque just like what's shown here, but it's a special plaque for single-off de-expeditions. That's a single-off that goes out away from his home country and mounts an expedition during this contest. And this award is available both for this contest as well as the WPX RTTY contest. So we give it out twice a year if there's a worthy recipient. So keep that in mind if you're doing a de-expedition, or if you would like to vote or recommend or recognize a contest de-expedition, just send us an email with what your thoughts are on that. We'd really appreciate the help in deciding who should receive this award each time. If we don't feel that there's a significant recipient in a particular contest, then we may forego it for that contest, but it's available to those de-expeditions. And it's not given to necessarily the highest score. It's really, we look at the overall impact of the de-expedition. For example, last year we gave one of these plaques to Papa 41 Yankee Lima because Sue and Carl Cook went back to Aruba, bought another property, went to a lot of effort over several months to refurbish a house, put up 3 towers, and build yet another contest station down there after they had built their first one back in the 90s. And to just recognize that and putting that country on the air, and of course the great operating that Sue's done, she got the award that year. So the award can be given for contributions to the country, to the local contesting group, can be for any number of reasons in conjunction with this contest. So think about that and let us know what your thoughts are. And then finally, after the contest, we could really use pictures and stories of how the contest went for you. These can be used in the magazine article, and we obviously can't run around the world seeing what's going on and taking pictures, so we need your help with that. So do take pictures, especially one with people in it. Any unusual aspects of the operation. Can be the geography, can be the setup, can be some help that maybe you got from locals there, or something that happened before or after the contest. Keep notes during the contest of conditions, how the operating was, unusual openings, any unusual things that happened during the contest, and then just send them to me afterwards. Some of you are signed up on our Facebook page. We have a CQWWRTTY Facebook page that really covers both contests, both the WPX and the Worldwide RTTY contest. And it's a pretty good place to disseminate information, but of course it requires that a person have a Facebook account. It's very easy to sign up for Facebook, but a lot of people don't have that yet. And so one of the questions that I had, which you might comment on later or send me an email, is would this be a reasonable alternative to a blog? I think it has all the characteristics and then some, because you can post photos and everything for a blog. But the drawback I see to it is that not everyone is signed up on Facebook and would require them to do so, and that difficulty may just cut down the participation in it. We've got 290 people that are signed up on this Facebook page right now, and in fact, this is what it looks like. So you can see earlier in the year when Don Hill was inducted into the CQ Contest Hall of Fame, we posted a couple pictures about that. There was a couple of announcements I put up about this webinar and an appeal for translation into other languages of the rules and that sort of thing. You can see over here we've got 291 people that are signed up for this page. So you might send me your thoughts on that. I think it's a good mechanism. I just worry about whether we're going to get as broad a base as we would with a regular internet blog like it is set up for WPX, which I could put directly on the website. And then lastly, here's just a list of some resources. Probably most of the people on this webinar know about all of these, but in case there's somebody that's new or that sees this slide set, these are just some pointers. As is often the case, at the top of the list is RTTycontesting.com, Don Hill's site. It's the richest site that exists for RTTY contesting. The only limitation that I would point out is that if you're not using WriteLog, all of the examples are in WriteLog. If you are using WriteLog as your logger, it's even more valuable because you can get message formats directly and specific detailed information about how to do things in WriteLog. But it's still very valuable if you're using other loggers. There's a tutorial on there called Getting Started in RTTY Contesting that's agnostic to loggers. It doesn't have anything about loggers in it. There's also some good information on Don's personal website. He has a lot of RTTY information that's there, so you might check that out. And then, of course, MMTTY, one of the most common decoders that's used in RTTY contesting, has its website. And then the various logger websites also have information on RTTY contesting. N1MM and WinTest, both in their documentation on their website, have specific things about RTTY. And then finally, there are the email reflectors, the discussion groups that are good to join. You can take virtually any question there, and there will be somebody that can answer it for you. So there's the RTTY list, MMTTY, and MixW. So that's the end of the formal presentation. We can open it up for questions or discussion. I look forward to working you all next weekend, and hope that we have some good propagation. Maybe we can get a little bit of 10 meters, although we keep saying that year after year, and it doesn't often happen. So Ken, I'll let you work on the funneling the questions, I guess.
Okay, very good, Ed. Yeah, it would be nice to see the high band start to open. Very good. Okay, well, this is the time for Q&A, and as I mentioned before, you really have two options if you'd like to ask a question. The first one is the questions pane on your control panel. You can just type in your question, hit send, and I'll pick it up here and pass it along to Ed. If you have a microphone connected and you'd like to speak to Ed directly, we can do that. What you need to do is to the left of your big control panel, there's another little rectangular panel, and I believe it's on the bottom of it. There's a hand icon. So what you need to do is click on that, and then I will recognize you and tell you to go ahead and ask your question.